Hey, Raymond here. I'm going to walk you through the billion-dollar IP strategy, the quickest way I know to make you super attractive to investors and build a business where everybody can be excited about the growth. We're going to do two things. Firstly, we'll talk about what are the phases in the journey. And then secondly, what are the key pieces of the IP strategy triad that'll multiply the value of your business and clear the inevitable risks on the way to unicorn status. I've done this many times. I've generated billions of dollars in value based on intellectual capital, and I've written 3 books on IP strategy for business. Stay tuned, and I'll show you how it works. There are many ways to grow a business, and I'm going to tell you how to grow using an investor-backed route. Let's show it as a ladder to visualize the different stages that are involved. Every smart business starts with an idea. You see a problem, and you have an idea for a solution that could change the world. You take the step of going from idea to starting a business. You assemble resources. You validate the idea, build the team, and start testing with customers. And as this idea gains traction and secures heavier investment, you move into scale up. And then over the years, as the business becomes even more valuable, investors are going to start looking for a return. This can be in terms of an exit by launching on public stock markets or an acquisition. At this stage, the business is recognized as an established player and may become the incumbent that is to be admired. Let's call this enterprise. At each of these stages, the business focus is different and the IP strategy would be different. Let's fill this in together by looking at a typical journey. For nearly every business success, you'll hear countless other people saying, "Oh, I had the same idea." So the idea alone is not enough to distinguish a business. Entrepreneurship involves both the alertness to opportunity and somebody taking action. So among all of the people who had the idea, only entrepreneurs will take the big step, such as mortgaging their house, getting a loan, giving up their job, and starting to build something. At this stage, the business probably has very few resources and could be defenseless against other people at the same level who have a similar idea. For most startups, the IP strategy is focused on not being copied. That might mean being particularly secretive and perhaps filing patent applications or trademark applications. As you move towards the next level, you gain momentum and traction. You may experience what's called product market fit. Investors are excited and give you funds to help you scale your business to higher levels. At this stage, you experience explosive growth. And rather than focus on secrecy and protection, the main priority will be clearing any barriers to that explosive growth. So you're building assets and clearing risks to growth. At some stage, the investors expect a return. A typical mechanism to achieve the return can be an exit through an initial public offering or being acquired in an M&A transaction. At this stage, the business can be considered an enterprise business, and strategic emphasis will shift to stability of growth. The leaders don't want the excitement of a scale-up. They're more focused on compliance, reporting, and generating stable, predictable results. You can see at each phase that the IP strategy will be different, going from secrecy to protection to clearing barriers to stability. While a lot of things I discussed in IP strategy have applications at the different levels, I'm going to concentrate on how we serve scale-up companies. If you've already received investment and have massive momentum, you've come to the right place. What I'd like to do now is show you the nuts and bolts so that you can look at your business and say what needs to work, what's working, where I focus next, and what's the system I need to apply to my business. I'll show you how it works. Hey, sorry to interrupt you. If you've seen enough and want to find out a bit more about what it looks like to work together, find me on LinkedIn and send me a message. Just include the word Sparkle. That'll be our secret code that I know you've seen this video. And I'll send you a quick doc with the details of what it looks like to work together. Do that. I'll see you soon. The way venture investing works for companies on a superstar path is that it follows a sequential funding rounds. You have a big ambition, but investors don't give you enough funding to get you to the finishing line. They give you enough to get to the next stage. You have to prove yourself at each round. And because the value is increasing, you must do more to impress the investors each time. And for companies like you, where the value is more than 90% intangible, the biggest hurdle is going to be IP due diligence. You will need to show that you actually own the invisible elements of your business. You can use this as an opportunity to reveal more value, and you will need to show that you're ready to manage the new invisible risks that come with higher valuations. And that's why we developed a $1 billion IP strategy that we call the IP Triad. So let me walk you through the strategy framework. This is the quickest way I know to make you more attractive to investors and help you build your business. And this can take 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, depending on where you are right now and how high you want to grow and how quickly you want to get there. How can venture-funded companies become more attractive to investors? The real multiplier is a new way of doing IP strategy. If you think that IP is expensive, if you're upset that nobody sees the real value in your company, or you're worried about growth being blocked, I have the answer today. It's called the IP Triad. I've talked with thousands of business leaders and hear 3 things all the time. We know IP is important, but we don't have a budget. Investors just don't see the value in what we're doing. We're really worried that our growth will be blocked by unexpected IP risks. The IP Triad answers all of these problems. Every business I go into has a wealth of hidden assets that we can uncover even without filing new patent applications. We have tools, systems, and expertise to uncover and capture the value. This could take the form of trade secrets, unregistered IP, or a disorganized IP story. We can also find ways to eliminate unnecessary costs. When you tackle this part of your business, you'll be able to identify new assets that your investors were not even aware of. This is one way to increase the value to investors. Also, you should be aware that your IP value is not frozen in time. Think of it as a living pool of assets that you can expand through clever management. This is where we come to the second arm of the IP Triad, where you boost your intangible value. How would you like to get multiple uses out of the same assets? Or perhaps you could build the portfolio by filling in gaps and extending strategically. And while you're doing it, you're building a continuous IP culture. So don't think of your IP strategy as legalistic protection. Think of it in the real business terms of assets and risks. And that brings us to the third arm, risks that will block your growth just as you start scaling rapidly. As you become successful, you'll face many unexpected IP risks. This could be in the form of disgruntled former employees coming back to claim some of the benefits. It could be jealous competitors. Your IP will be under attack, and your business could be blocked by other people's IP. You'll start to learn about patent trolls. And as you become a serious player, you'll find that the big guns in the game will be lined up against you. So what I want to do now is walk you through the how-to. I'll show you some of the missions, tools, and projects that we run with our clients to help make everything happen. I'll show you 3 things about each side of the IP Triad. But the most important thing here is we're not just drawing models. We're taking a fitness check for your business. And for each element, I'll ask you a question, and you can score yourself as if you're at a traffic light. For each of the questions, you can pick a color. You can be green, meaning this is a real strength for us. We're strong on this point. Yellow is, okay, maybe could use an upgrade. Or red, this is a real problem. could need to be worked on. I have sticky notes, and I even have colored tabs that can be applied. So work along with me. If you don't have stickers, you can use colored pens or write G, Y, R for green, yellow, red. And when we have the colors down, we'll be able to diagnose the business and plan the first things we need to work on together. Is that okay? Good. Let's get going. We use a tool called the Nugget Finder to uncover IP assets hidden within your company. If you have smart people working in your company, they're dealing with problems every day and coming up with solutions. Knowledge inside their heads is valuable intellectual capital. You may have unregistered intellectual property. Normally, in a company that has patents, we can find at least 5 times as many trade secrets. If a company has, say, 8 patents, it probably has 40 underlying trade secrets. Are there special methodologies you've developed? If you're clear about the assets you have, give yourself a green. If there's some work to be done, give yourself a yellow. And if you haven't thought about it, give yourself a red. Don't worry about the score you're getting right now. This is just to get us started. So I will just mark yellow as an illustration, but you can go along with the video and record your own score. The second big piece is a real strategy one, which we call pillars. Under nuggets, we looked at different potential assets that you could highlight. But it's common for companies to begin IP strategy with a single dominant class of IP. For example, technology companies will file patents. Companies with brands will file trademark applications. But if you use a single type of IP, your strategy is vulnerable to competitors who have the ability to undermine that IP. We always recommend a multifaceted IP strategy based on pillars of patents and trademarks and copyrights and trade secrets and other forms of IP, so that even if one leg of your business is knocked out, that your strategy is still robust and your business survives. So when you're marking yourself on the pillars, if you have multiple pillars supporting your IP strategy, give yourself a green. If you have a dominant pillar, but some dominant pillars as well, maybe that's a yellow. But if you are focused on a single IP strategy, then give yourself a red. So in this one, I'm going to assume that the answer is red. A third way of uncovering hidden value is to cut unnecessary costs. In the 1990s, Dow Chemical used to encourage their inventors to file patent applications. And the result of that was they built a large portfolio of patents. And some of those patents were very valuable, but some didn't contribute any value to the company. They performed a review of the portfolio and they found 25% of the portfolio contributed no value to the business. And as a matter of fact, it was a cost because you had to pay for the maintenance costs of those worthless patents. So just by selling off some of the patents and abandoning others, they saved $40 million over 5 years just by abandoning those maintenance fees. Do you have assets that are costing you money? For example, do you have registrations in countries where you're not even doing business? Or perhaps you're still maintaining a patent for technology that is obsolete or no longer core to your business. Other costs that you could examine are the expensive professional fees that you're paying the wrong advisors. It doesn't always follow that the most expensive advisors are giving you the best service. It might be that you've been persuaded to perform freedom to operate studies, which are expensive but may not be necessary for your business. So for this category, rate yourself. If you know exactly what you want and have a tight control over IP costs, give yourself a green. If you've done a review before that might need updating, maybe that's a yellow. And if you're spending a lot on IP and have no idea why, that could be red. So I'm assuming you have a tight handle on this, and I'm going to put down a green here. So that is the hidden assets that are in your business. So, if you've uncovered intangible assets hidden in the business, the next thing you can do to impress investors is show them that you have the ability to expand the value of the assets. And one of the interesting things is the difference between intangible assets and tangible assets in terms of characteristics. Let me give the example of a tangible asset like a bicycle. If you're riding a bicycle, you have to get off before somebody else can get on and ride it. You could rent it out and get rental income, but then you can't use the bicycle while it's being rented out. You could cut the bicycle in half, give half to one person, keep half yourself, but you only have half a bicycle left. Or you could sell the bicycle. That brings in cash, but you don't have a bicycle to ride anymore. But let's take intangible assets, such as a song. And the songwriter Ed Sheeran could write a song that he can sing in the bath for his own enjoyment. But he can also record that song and sell CDs or sell it for downloads. And that doesn't stop people from playing it on the radio, where he can get royalties. And people go to concerts to listen to the song. And just because they bought the CD or they heard it on the radio doesn't mean that they're not going to go to the concert. So you can see that the multiple ways of monetizing an IP intangible right don't conflict with each other. Taking the Ed Sheeran story further, he can use this song in television adverts. He can have it as the soundtrack to a movie. He can also use rights to prevent politicians from using his song in political campaigns. So compared to a tangible asset like a bicycle, where you can only enjoy it in one way at one time, you can enjoy intangible assets and get value from them in multiple ways. So what about your assets? Do you have any assets that you're only using in one way? For example, you use them only for protection. Perhaps you could monetize these assets in multiple ways while also using them. So we've developed a checklist of 55 ways that you can use a patent, that we use this list to analyze assets with our clients. How many different ways are you using your assets? Now, I'm not saying you need to use 55 ways all at once. But if you started with 5 different ways, that would be 5 times more valuable than just using your asset in one way. So look at your current IP portfolio. If you're generating multiple ways of squeezing value from your assets, give yourself a green here. If you've thought about it and have taken the first steps, make that a yellow. And if it never occurred to you that you could be generating more value from the same assets, mark that down as a red for now. And just a word, if you're finding multiple red stickers in this exercise, don't lose heart. These are opportunities for us to get quick wins when we start working on it. The next part of boosting value is building on what we already have. As we become more conscious of the importance of IP, you'll find opportunities to build out your portfolio. Perhaps there were gaps in coverage, or maybe you can point to a new direction of improvement with targeted development of self-created IP. And if you want to have a lower risk shortcut, you could also look at the option of acquiring assets on the market, or just gaining access to the rights you need through smart licensing. So, assessment time. Do you have an active program of building on the rights that you already have? Have you identified the gaps that you could fill easily? If you do, that's a green. If it could be a little bit better, let's say yellow. And if there are gaps that you haven't started on, that's red. I'm going to put yellow here for this one. While a lot of the discussion we've had so far focus on assets, I want to remind you that your intellectual capital comes from the heads of your people. If you can build a culture of IP in your organization, this will pay handsomely in increasing the value of your business. So if everybody in your team has a strong understanding of how their smart activities are contributing to building the value of the company and they're alert to the new opportunities, that's a green. If only a few key players understand the importance of intellectual capital, make it yellow. And if most members of your team are unaware of how IP contributes to the success of the company, mark that as a red. So we've been looking at assets in the company. If you can show that you're in control of the intangible value and you're enhancing the value of the assets under your stewardship, that's a strong signal to investors of a well-run company. Something that's often overlooked until it's too late is the issue of IP risks. Remember your journey up the ladder that we described? When you were a startup and you were dealing with all the problems that a startup faces, you probably said to yourself, I can't wait until I'm successful because all of our problems will be over. But as you become more successful, you will face a whole new set of problems. And those are probably problems that you have never learned how to handle when you were a startup. But these are issues that investors want to know that you will be able to handle when you face them. One of the risks that you will face will be the loss of IP assets. For example, if you start to enforce your rights against somebody who was infringing, they have two defenses: non-infringement or invalidity. They could say, oh, how you describe things in your patent or trademark, we're doing it a different way. Or for the invalidity, they could try to invalidate your protection. You could lose your key assets if they're invalidated in this way. You could have a disgruntled employee who walks out with some of your valuable trade secrets. Not just technical information, but also perhaps valuable business secrets. So, do you have a way to ring fence your valuable rights that you have built up? Do you have strong procedures in place? Are you monitoring what's going on and do you have ways to respond rapidly? If so, mark it green. If you have some doubts, say yellow. And if this is a genuine weakness, put it down as red. This time, we'll say green. Apart from people you know, you may face external risks such as jealous competitors or opportunists such as patent trolls. These are people who may want to take advantage of your success. They may use their IP to stop your business or to extract a benefit for themselves. With companies like this, your own IP may not be the solution to an attack. These kinds of attacks only happen after you become successful, but they may become the biggest barrier to your ongoing success unless you're ready for them. So, are you already aware of the inevitability of these attacks? Do you have plans and resources to be able to deal with them? If so, that deserves a green sticker. If you've made some provision but not 100% sure, make it yellow. And if you're assuming that this will never happen to you, mark it red. So I'm going to make it yellow. Your IP risks don't just come from small players and opportunists. Some of the biggest companies in the world spend billions of dollars every year on research and development. Often they end up generating IP that's not even directly related to their core business. And when you're a startup, they'll give you a free pass. But as you become more successful, it's likely that some of the things that you do will incorporate IP that's been developed by these giants. And because you're successful, they will consider you should pay your fair share to use the IP that they have developed. And if you're truly ambitious and consider yourself a disruptive player, as you become more successful, you will call more attention to yourself. Your success means that you will have to displace some of the business of those bigger players. And you can imagine they're not just going to give up a portion of their business without a fight. They will use the best weapons they have at their disposal. And that's what we call a unicorn shield. Have you considered the defenses that you need to put in place when you're playing with the big boys? Do you have a strategy to withstand the most powerful attacks that you could face? If so, make it a green. If you've some preparation in place, but need sharpening up, make it a yellow. And if this is something that you haven't even thought about, select red. So when you come to the end of the exercise, you're probably going to have a mixture of greens and yellows and reds. And this also becomes the IP story that you can show to investors to impress them with how well the company is run. You can reveal some of the assets that were invisible even to the investors. You can demonstrate how under your stewardship, you can take a portfolio of intangible assets and multiply that value. You can also demonstrate to them how you're in a good position to face those inevitable IP risks that you will face as you move to the higher levels of success. So how did you do? Did this give you a better sense of the health of your IP strategy? Are you excited about the areas where you can do quick fixes? If there were 3 levers we could pull, 3 systems we could install over the next 30, 60, 90 days, what would make the biggest difference for you? What are those 3? I want you to circle them if you're on paper like I am, or highlight them in your favorite way. Whatever the 3 are for you, that would make the biggest difference. Guess what we've just done? We've identified the constraints. So regardless of where you are on this map, what's yellow, what's red, what's green, the systems are simple. For each one of these areas, there are some strategies, some tactics, some tools, proven playbooks that we can install in your business. So now you can go 2 ways. Based on this overall analysis of the business, you could already move ahead and try to fix this yourself. The other way is to get help from somebody who can accelerate the process and get you to the results you want more rapidly. If you want to find out more about working with us, just send me a message on LinkedIn with the word sparkle somewhere in it, ideally in all caps. That'll be our little word that'll let me know that you've seen this video and you know a little bit about it, and I'll just send you the details on how it works to work with us. There's no pressure. You don't need to book a sales call. I'll just send you the information in a simple doc. You can have a read. If it's for you, you'll know what to do. If it's not for you, that's okay too. So, you know what to do. If this has been useful, send me a message with the word sparkle in it on LinkedIn, and I'll see you in my inbox.